It's time to talk about all things Batman. We've got a couple of key issues that came out. We got Batman 120, Detective Comics 1051, keeping up the Shadows of the Bat event. And we've got Dark Knights of Steel #4. And obviously with me, as always, is the Batman aficionado himself, the DC historian, popbyculture.com's own Josh Williamson. How are you doing, Josh?
Josh Williamson, dude, I'm the writer of Batman. Yeah. I'm good.
There's one of those days, man.
Look, I understand. I get it.
Whatever, man. People know who you are. You made fun of me enough. I'm going to cut that out. But it's obviously it's Josh McDonald. I did it on purpose.
You're trying to make me feel good about myself, so I'll take it.
Speaking of Josh Williamson, we've got Batman 120 with Ray Molina once again on art. The first two issues of his Batman run have been really hot fire, really setting up a lot of stuff. We're getting more set up here. There's some odd things going on with this comic book, speaking of things that don't make sense. But we'll start with Lex Luthor. That's the big thing going on here. He's wearing like this tech bat suit that apparently he made for Batman himself for when he joined Batman Inc. Obviously he hasn't. And he's talking to the shadows, and it turns out it is Abyss that's coming to pay a visit. We don't see what happens there, but it seems like there's something going on with these two, and they don't like each other.
It does. And to clarify, what made this moment very, very weird is it got dark, and which is a tactic Batman uses all the time. And you got Lex Luthor talking about, show yourself. I'm ready for you. I made this suit to combat you. And then in the middle of doing that, he's like, show yourself, Abyss. Like, we were just setting up for Batman, but now you're like, show yourself, Abyss. So it was really strange. I didn't get it. I think it was just, I think Josh Williamson might be a little overworked right now, and it was not as thought out as it should have been. But
that's my impression after this issue. We also get a pretty stupid bit of plot at the very beginning where we got this detective. She's walking out with a body bag. She says she's got Abyss in the body bag. Of course, it's the size of Batman, and her boss is just like, take it to Lex Luthor's tower. We're not going to check or send an escort with you or anything. And she just takes Bruce Wayne back to the apartment. Like,
it was one of those things that it's like, okay, it's pseudo believable because they set up that Luthor was supposed to be taking the body to begin with, and the police were completely on board with this. They were in line.
They're in the bag. He's paying them off.
Yeah, but check the bag. Especially if you're looking for Batman and you're gonna have the line saying we can't find him anywhere, like why wouldn't you check the bag?
I got two more complaints, but this is the next one. So he's blind, he's in the apartment, and he decides he's gonna spring Batman Incorporated from prison. And then next thing you know, he's in prison freeing them. They forgot to show the part where he did it. That would have been the most important thing. He's fucking blind.
Well, realistically, do we want to see Batman knocking around the walls, the hallways, just like running into doors and stuff? He doesn't know this facility. It's one thing to say like, oh, Batman's used to the darkness. He can work his way through things, but he's in another country in a prison that we're going to assume he's never been in, and he can't see anything.
Yeah.
I think they were like, they realized there's no way we can actually show this that makes sense. So we're just going to get him in there and he's breaking them out.
So he frees him. Let's get to this final scene because this thing is incomprehensible to me. So he's on the top of the prison. He's got Batman Inc., and they are not happy with him. They do not want to speak with him. He's trying to negotiate with them. They do not want to talk to him. Next thing we know, Lex Luthor arrives, and Lex goes, we've been set up. And in order for us to get out of here, you need to work for me. Yeah. And then they turn around, and it turns out Abyss is leading Batman Incorporated against the two of them, even though Lex Luthor is funding them and created a Batman suit to stop Abyss, who apparently was the leader of Batman Incorporated.
So these last two pages, like I had minor issues with everything before, but I was like, all right, I can write it off. It could have been done better. And I can, in my mind, find ways to justify it. This last page, I don't know what the fuck was going on. You literally have Lex Luthor. You see him climbing up onto the roof of the prison that they're at. He climbs up on the roof. You've got Batman yelling at Lex Luthor. And then, like, the next panel, it's not Lex Luthor, it's Abyss. I don't know if they're trying to hint that this is something going on with Batman's vision or that Abyss is able to
because he could see Lex Luthor, and that's the only thing he could see. He did mention that on the
he did mention he could see Lex Luthor's only. Maybe Abyss can play with what people actually see. Like, maybe that's part of his power. If that is, it was not presented clearly at all. Because
they tell him Batman Inc. works for Abyss.
They say both. I mean, you establish that Lex Luthor is the funds behind Batman Inc. and they're technically working for Lex Luthor from a funding standpoint, and then it flips it to say that they're actually working for Abyss and they want to kill Lex Luthor.
So they tried to kill Abyss and they thought they did it, and they went to prison to lure Batman out of Gotham?
I really don't know. As much as I would like to say that I understand what they're doing, I don't know what they're going for here. Hopefully we'll get some type of clarity in the next issue. I don't know if Williamson thought he was creating a mystery here, and it's less of a mystery and more of like, yo, you didn't write this well. Yeah.
The first 2 issues I loved. I still like this one. I still recommend it. Like, the art's fantastic, but there's just something missing that was there for the first 2 issues. I don't think it was executed at quite the level. And admittedly, Josh is very overtaxed. He's doing Justice League Incarnate, Robin, Deathstroke Inc. He's got the Rogues coming out. He's obviously got Batman. He's got the Shadow War thing going on. He's got a lot of stuff going on.
He's got a lot. I mean, honestly, with everything he's got going on, I'm surprised this hasn't had more problems than just what's in this issue. And again, we're harping on the problems here. There's still plenty to enjoy. You mentioned the art. So Melina and you have Michaela Hanine stepping in to assist as well. Together, they're incredible. The book looks freaking fantastic. And there's still moments that are really, really good. When Batman is in the detective's apartment and he's trying to sort his way through, like, how is he going to overcome this blindness or this darkness that he's facing? You see him just trying to register through, like, it's almost like steps of operation. He's like, all right, cool. I don't have the equipment that I need. I can't determine if this is going to be nanotech or something that's like biochemical within me. And I loved seeing that process of Batman work through a problem, and we don't get enough of that. So that I loved. And there are moments, there's some decent action. Even him speaking of the Batman Inc. team, I like those moments. So it's not all bad, but it definitely has its problems.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about something that's got a lot more problems than Batman 120. Detective Comics 1051. I mean, this is the 5th issue of Shadows of the Bat.
Yeah.
Mariko Tamaki. Now we have Max Raynor on art instead of Ivan Reis. So Max Raynor's fine. The art's not quite as good as before, but it's still good. Yeah. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
The payoffs that we're getting from this story and what we're hinted at the beginning are so lame. It's like collapsing in on itself like a house of cards. So now we're finding out that Weir guy, he's just a con man. And you're like, well, this is a really fucking big con, because how much do you think it costs to build a 40-story skyscraper in fucking Gotham? $1 billion? Where's the funding come from? How did he con somebody out of that to actually erect this building and let him do all these things that apparently he had no plan in place or a proof of concept or no studies in there to be like, this is what we want to do. So they're just going to give him this money. And then it turns out his childhood friend is fucking Psycho Pirate. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Okay. So there are typically moments in books where I'm not crazy about it, and I'll keep giving it a chance, hoping that it'll get better. And then there's a point where I just have to throw my hands up and be like, oh, fuck this. This, I can't. This issue is that moment for me. And what's crazy, it's not that it's so egregiously bad. It's just not good.
It's stupid.
And I think that one of the biggest problems here is the structure of the story and how they decided to tell the story. Because the fact that in that very first issue, you saw that Arkham's going to complete, which I think we all knew there was going to be problems here. Arkham's going to get overrun. But the fact that you showed exactly what was going on and that Weir gets killed, you killed every ounce of momentum since then. So what could be just a nice basic story that you read and you're like, all right, that was fine. Now it's just terrible. We already know. We know what's going to happen. We know how we're going to get there. So every little reveal along the way doesn't feel like a reveal. It's just like, oh, okay. I don't care. Just get to this point.
So Weir is this genius fucking con man that has apparently built people out of billions of dollars to erect a building so that he could get a few $100 million from Nakano. How that's a good plan, I don't know. I would have just kept the $1 billion to begin with. That's neither here nor there. But his plan is he needs to have Psycho Pirate, his childhood buddy, apparently, comes off as a preening wuss instead of the actual Psycho Pirate character. And his plan is Psycho Pirate can't sleep, so he's just sitting in a room full of Red Bulls and No-Dos. And it's shocking he passed out eventually.
I know. So that was the moment that I was like, I'm fucking done.
It was the worst, one of the worst reveal pages, one of the worst spread pages I've ever seen in my life. It was so frustrating. I was like, are you kidding me? Is that what I'm reading?
If you wanted to convey this in a better way, you could say that your plan was to con everyone, and it's not the pills, even though we know they're selling the pills, right? They're getting sold, so he's making income off that. So if your plan is to con, you have to at least set it up knowing that you can't keep Psycho Pirate from not sleeping ever. Keep your facility on lockdown. Don't let people in. At night, when they go in their cells, they're in. Let Psycho Pirate sleep. And then you could, if you wanted to have the
cameras off.
Yeah, if you wanted to have the same idea, you could say like, oh, the work consistently that Psycho Pirate's having to do to keep these people in line during the day when we're trying to showcase this is wearing on him and he's losing his grasp.
Apparently he's conning, who else is he conning? He's conning Penguin. He's conning, who's the other big bad?
It's the Joker's, whatever his goons are called right now.
Squad.
Yeah, the party squad. That's it.
The half of the shipment of Numb are like placebo, and they know that, and he's got to give them both full shipments of real stuff. And you're like, this is the worst con man in the history of the world.
Yeah, it would have been. And again, I think if this story had been told linear, like in a linear format, it would have been much better. Because you would have had this new thing coming up. We're already questioning, why are they building a new Arkham? Why is it a tower? Why is it in the center of Gotham City? So there's already like these I don't even want to say mystery, but these questions there that's going to have people wonder what's really going on here. You've got all these criminals that are suddenly doing fine. Hey, here's this new medication. Okay, it's making them feel this way and act this way. What's really behind it? So then you have another layer there. Then you find out that it's hitting the streets. The drugs are hitting the streets. Okay, what's going on? This shouldn't be hitting the streets. If they had just gone and told the story in a linear format, there would have been more intrigue. Because we're doing it the way we're doing it, it's just stupid. And it's not to say that it wouldn't land in the end. It still probably would not land. But at least your build to this would have made more sense. You would have felt more involved. You probably would have wanted to read the next issue to see, okay, what else is going on here? Because there are a ton of different layers, but there's so many different layers going so many different directions that just getting a piece of them in multiple different areas of time, like you have no sense of direction. And there's
should have been a 4-issue story arc. It should have been a weekly event series for 3 months. And they probably wouldn't have the pacing issue that they have right now. It would have made Tamaki focus on the story, work it out, and get some of these kinks out of there, because there's a lot of lame stuff going on. Yeah. But at this point, to try and turn this into a weekly event series, it's bad. It's making Mariko Tamaki look really stupid. And Ben Abernathy and the leadership at DC look equally stupid that they ever thought this was a good idea and greenlit it.
Yeah, it's bad. And again, I do think there are decent ideas here. They're just executed so terribly.
Let's talk about the final issue, and I do feel dirty when I praise Tom Taylor. Thankfully, I'm not going to do that this week with Dark Knights of Steel number 4. We've got Bengal on art primarily this week, so we have a change in artist here as well. This is mostly a flashback about how when the elves arrived, their relationship with the Waynes, how Bruce Wayne, the one we have in this universe, got here, why he's susceptible to kryptonite, and it's Alfred kind of telling the story. And we get a lot of backstory. But I'll be honest with you, Josh, walking away from this, I don't have a new feeling or understanding or appreciation for any of the relationships that they're trying to flesh out with this. I still know that Bruce Wayne's father is Jor-El. I still know that, the Waynes were good people, that they died, they were murdered, and that the elves took over, at their request. It feels completely unnecessary. It's not terrible. It's not bad. No. But it's like, I didn't need to read this.
Yeah, it is unnecessary, and you're right. It's not bad, but it's also not good. Well, let me rephrase that. It is necessary. I think at some point you have to acknowledge the plot that Jor-El is Bruce's father and what happened there. I think
they did that when he was affected by kryptonite. There was no way else to see about it.
No. It's not to say to reveal, but I did have a lingering question of like, okay, so what happened that he is the father? Like, what caused this? So there was a curiosity there. Did we need an entire issue? Yeah. Well, that's what I think. Do we need an entire issue? No. And I think what would have been a much more effective and efficient way of doing this is having Bruce reveal to the mother. Crap,
Martha. No,
I know. I started to say Martha, and that's what Martha.
I can't remember Jor-El's
We're
wife.
just gonna, we're just gonna say Mama L. All right. If he would have had a conversation with her, revealing like, hey, what is going on here? I just discovered I have these powers. Like, I am I your son? If she were to say, no, this is what happened. Mistakes were made. Your parents were good people. It was just a mistake. The fact that she was not the one that birthed him, and she is not his mother. And she can say, like, these things are forgiven. People make mistakes. Live your life. You're a representation of two good families. Would have been so much more powerful and so much more impactful. And you wouldn't have needed an entire issue. You would have needed a page. And then you could have just told your story. Instead, we get this huge flashback that we don't need. Also, speaking of which, the one thing that I hated about this issue was Lex.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you, man.
God. Okay, so Lex being like the one not to share stuff, whatever, it's fine. It's a Lex Luthor archetype.
He was like the hand of the king or something.
Yeah, like I'm fine with that. It was how they ended it. So Lex Luthor gets banished because he doesn't talk about the volcano, or he doesn't tell the king and queen about the volcano that's about to erupt. Like whatever, he gets banished. Well, he finds like a Green Lantern power ring. He wears it and it corrupts him. So now he's this like amalgamation of Lex Luthor, the Joker, and a Green Lantern.
Green Lantern, yes.
I'm good. I don't need that.
It was some Scott Snyder bullshit from like Dark Knight's Metal.
I literally said, "What the fuck is this, Scott Snyder?" Oh man, jeez, I did not like that at all.
I can see Tom Taylor be like, "Scott, I got this metal story, bro.
It's gonna melt your face off."
Like Snyder's like, "Man, I already thought about that 3 years ago, bro." Yeah, I see where you're going though.
Yeah, I was not a fan. I again, not a terrible issue, just wasn't needed. It's definitely the first like misstep in this book. So hopefully it gets back on track soon.
More power to you if you want to go invest $5 in this, but you can absolutely skip it and you ain't missing anything. And you could save your $5 and maybe buy a couple of issues of the next one if it's actually good.
It's one of those things like you could read a review and get what you needed out of this.
Absolutely. So not a great week in Batman. I do recommend Batman 120. It's fine. A step down in my opinion as far as story craft and execution for what we got in Batman 118 and 119. Not a big misstep, but it is what it is. Detective Comics 1051 I do not recommend. No. If you were thinking about jumping in on Shadows of the Bat, do not do it. It's a waste of time. It's actually pretty stupid. It's really falling apart. Some of the cool ideas that were introduced at the beginning are becoming really stupid. I'm sorry, Mariko Tamaki. They probably shouldn't have put you in this position, but you are absolutely failing with this event series. And then Dark Knights of Steel, take it or leave it. It was unnecessary, but it's not offensive or anything. It's just whatever it is.
Yeah, spot on.
If you have been experiencing Batman fatigue, you are not alone. Josh and I just talked about this last week, that DC Comics are seemingly going out of their way to make reading Batman feel like work. If you haven't seen this video, definitely check it out.